Linda's going to open our meeting in prayer.
Please rise and bow your heads. Dear God, we come today to bow our heads and open this meeting in prayer. We ask that you bless our candidates and that you would bless our time together today. May we grasp those things that you want us to understand. May our hearts always be ready to respond to you and your wisdom. May our conduct create an environment of cooperation and kindness. Lord, we have many candidates to consider for the November election coming up. Help us identify the best candidates that will do your work and serve the people in the way you would want them to. Open their hearts and minds. Give them the strength to fulfill your wishes against many odds they will face. Guide them upon their election to always keep you first in their decisions. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We know we got quite a few people here. We do ask that you please be quiet, be considerate of the speakers and others. The official start of the candidates' night will be in about 15 minutes. I first have to do some BCP business, and I'm going to be making some personal comments. Folks, there are some candidates that are still looking for signs to put 4x8s out. If you have a location, please let Linda know. Also, the Berks County Patriots are looking for a couple locations for 4x8 signs to promote our meetings. Again, please let Linda know. As you can see, we brought back the 50-50 raffle. If you haven't brought a ticket and you want to do so, please do very quietly. We will have the drawing at the end. Now, Berks County Patriots, obviously we have the general election next month, but we also have the Berks County Patriots election next month as well. So per the bylaws, I need to read this. The third Thursday in October at our general meeting, the election committee shall announce that nominations will be open from the first day in October to October 31st. Nominations will be accepted in writing, email, or U.S. mail to the chairman of the election committee and posted promptly on the BCP website. It is the responsibility of the nominating entry to ensure that their intent is communicated to the election committee and shall have their name and email available to be displayed on the BCP website. Self-nominations are permitted. Folks, we need your help. I know you heard this before. I know I sound like a broken record, but we really do need your help. There's only a few board members doing almost all the work needed to run BCP. Others are limited because of business commitments and health issues. There are several concerns that we need to address. One, we need help. Two, we need to put more people in seats. Three, we need to raise more revenue. There are some meetings we do not cover the cost of the meeting, and that does not cover overhead. I just want to let you know that your board has done everything it can do with what it has available. The rest is up to you, and the future is up to you. So please see a board member. Hopefully you offer your help in one of those areas. Folks, I'm going to make some personal comments. I need to emphasize, these are my personal comments. They do not reflect on the Berks County Patriots. Before I do, I want to apologize to some of you here tonight. Tonight is not the best time for me to make these comments. However, it's the only time available. So I apologize in advance. Please forgive me. We basically have a two-party system, Republicans and Democrats. If you want to try to get something done, you need to work within those two parties. Now, I know we have some others here tonight that are trying to change that. Hey, go for it. The Berks County Patriots are nonpartisan. Our support for a candidate is based on our beliefs and issues. I don't want to offend any of my Democrat friends or others, but those beliefs and issues, in most cases, are aligned in the Republican Party. If you would look on some of the chairs, there is a handout. There's actually a chart comparing the Republican Party and the Democrat Party on certain issues. I want you to look at it, analyze it, research it yourself, and then make your own decision. That handout was put together by John Archer. John, I know you're here. Where are you, John? John. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. John put a lot of work into that. Thank you again. Again, folks, these are my personal comments, not the Berks County Patriots. The Republicans must keep control of the House and Senate. I'm sure all of you are aware of what happened with Judge Kavanaugh. All the different things that were said about him in and outside of D.C. I do want to tell you that the Dr. Ford issue was not about Dr. Ford. It was about destroying Judge Kavanaugh so the nomination would be destroyed. Do you know that the Yale Law School condemned Judge Kavanaugh? Do you know that the Harvard Law School will no longer allow him to teach there? Now, folks, these are both law schools. You would think they would know better, unless they're political. Do you know that Susan Collins is now called a rape apologist? And she needs police protection. Folks, has the left forgot about the rule of law, due process, and presumptions of innocence? Possibly so. At least according to Chuck Schumer, he said, there is no presumption of innocence for Judge Kavanaugh. Folks, that's very scary, really scary. I have a few other scary things I'm going to read to you. I need to go through these very quickly. I don't want Rod to get upset with me again. Do you know that Speaker Pelosi compared Judge Kavanaugh to the murderous North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un? Do you know that Senator Gardner's wife received a graphic text message with a video depicting a beheading? What about the pickup truck that was torched because it had a 2020 Trump sticker on the bumper? Did you see the cartoon with Judge Kavanaugh's 10-year-old daughter? Despicable. Hey, what about the high school marching band, their halftime performance, simulating killing cops? Wow. Yes, simulating killing cops. Apparently, it's okay in the schools to simulate killing cops on the playing field, but you cannot pray. That's 180 degrees off target, I would think. Question for you. What is the biggest terrorist organization on the planet?
Democrats.
No, don't even go there. I want to tell you. No? Okay, I lost my place. If you are a white male with a gun, you are. You are the biggest terrorist organization on the planet. That's according to spokesman for Democratic group in Tennessee. Just so you know. By the way, one of the candidates that unfortunately is not going to be able to make it tonight, he personally experienced an incident with the left. It wasn't pleasant. I thought he'd be here tonight. He could explain it. I'm not going to repeat it. Oh, what about the teacher who tweeted, "So, who's going to take one for the team and kill Kavanaugh?" What about the Democrat operative for Soros-funded group arrested for battery against Nevada GOP candidate campaign manager? Final one, the list goes on and on. Republican Vermont candidate gets letter threatening death and rape. As I said, folks, this list goes on and on. How often do you hear the left condemning those type of things? To the contrary, there are many in this country and in Washington that not only don't condemn it, but they encourage confrontation and worse. This is very alarming and could be devastating to our country. Folks, this is what the left has become. If you do not agree with them, if you do not do what they want, you become a target. Is this still America? Well, I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't the party of John F. Kennedy. Ask yourself, how far will the left go? Well, folks, you will find out if Republicans lose control of the House and Senate. Folks, just imagine what the left is doing now and getting away with it, and they're not in power. Can you imagine what might happen if they do take control? God help us. Folks, I pray that God returns our country back to the godly Constitution, Republic that was founded on. Our liberties are being eroded, and now we have cowardly thugs covering their faces, roaming our country. The two most important things you can do to help, besides prayer: one, vote. You're all voters here, I know that. Two, you got to get other people to the polls. Our friends down at the Lehigh Valley Tea Party, which we were there a couple weeks ago, and Chairman Tom Carroll is in the back, they have this little label that says, has a U and a plus sign, and then 2. U plus 2. Hey, I think that's great. U plus 2. Make that your assignment. Please, please do that. Now, I have one more segment. I'm going to go through this rather quickly. Number 5 is a biggie. I want to tell you what the left is planning, what their wish list is, or at least part of it. And most of this you know. Number 1, take control of the House and Senate. Number 2, if they do that, the left will then control the Senate confirmation process, which means they will not allow any judge to be confirmed. I'm not talking just the Supreme Court. I'm talking the federal courts that are on our land. And they will make sure none get confirmed for over 2 years. Number 3, they want to win the 2020 election. Number 4, should those occur, then the new president will fill those vacant judgeships throughout the land, probably about 200 in that range. Liberal judges, if you're conservative, that's not good. Number 5, this is the biggie. This is something that's always been taboo, because it was sort of like a legal coup, at least in my thinking. Now, instead of being whispering, it's out the front page. And Carol Gardecki, where are you? In the back? I learned this a couple years ago. Folks, our Constitution does not state the number of judges on the Supreme Court. There's no fixed amount. We currently have 9. We didn't always have 9. So, number 5, the new president will immediately appoint and get confirmed 2 additional Supreme Court justices, bringing the total from 9 to 11. That's called stacking the court. In my mind, that's sort of like a legal coup. That's what you possibly have in store for you. Folks, we're fighting for the soul of our republic. When you go to the polls on November 6th, I want you to think about your kids and your grandkids. I want you to vote as though the future of your kids and grandkids depend on it. It does. God bless you all. God bless our President Trump, and God bless America. That ends my personal comments. Again, I know this was very partisan. It was the only time I could do it. Those of you that may not agree, I give my apologies again. Thank you. Okay, now, just a couple minutes before I turn this over to Rod, these are a couple things that happened just recently. First thing I'm going to tell you, I thought this was a joke or funny. Well, it turns out it really isn't. Folks, we now have fictional characters that are under assault. What do we have here? Prince Charming is now attacked for kissing Snow White without her permission. You cannot kiss someone if they're sleeping. This is no joke, folks. Christian Bell, I believe it is, quote, "Don't you think that it's weird that the prince kisses Snow White without her permission? Because you cannot kiss someone if they are sleeping." I'm not going to comment anymore. I think you can see how things become ridiculous. Next item. This just came across my desk this morning. Donna, there are, do you want to get to come see for Donna, please? Donna and her daughter. Someone, thank you. Folks, this just came across my desk this morning, and the Berks County Patriots will be looking into this. It's a House Bill, Pennsylvania House Bill 2669. This is a bill that bans loaded firearms in vehicles. Now, what does that really mean? If you have a concealed carry permit, you pay for it, it's legal, you cannot be driving your car. Think about that. Now, we will be checking into this further, but that's my interpretation. We'll get back to you next month on that, but these are things we've got to keep on top of. The last and final item, folks, all of you, I know, want school property taxes eliminated. And many of you have been working to do that for years. And we have a couple of the key players in the back now. I know Dean Klopp's back there, I see Dean. Ron Baltz, are you here? Ron Baltz, okay. Is Jim here by any chance? Jim Rocky? Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Folks, those are your players. They've been out there for years working on this, as many of you have been out there, as Linda has and I have. I bring this up because we're going to win this fight. We really are. I want to let you know, I'm going to read this. This is a press release. Taxpayers to deliver over 30,000 signed petitions urging Governor Wolf to support elimination of school property taxes on Tuesday. You hear that, folks? You hear that? Volunteers with the PLA, Pennsylvania Rotunda, with school property tax elimination on Tuesday, October 23rd, 9 to 10 a.m. Please, if any of you can make it, please go there. Please support them. You'll have Ron Bolts will be talking, Jim Rodkey, let's see, Senator Mike Fulmer, and Representative Frank Ryan will be there as well. Folks, I want to point out one other person. I don't want to single out people because there's so many who work so hard. There's one individual here. I got to mention that's her name. Please, the rest of you, forgive me. Tammy Keener, please stand up. Tammy, I'm going to tell you, that little thing back there is a warrior. She can be in the hospital with a stroke, and she's still working. You cannot believe what she has done. Thank you so much, Tammy. Folks, thank you all. I'm going to be turning the meeting over to Rod in a moment. Folks, I cannot tell you how much I want to thank Rod Miller for what he's done, not only with this candidate's night, but the several that we had this year. You cannot imagine the countless hours that he put in, the sleepless nights, and I'm sure in some cases with the candidates, it was like herding cats. So folks, let's all thank and welcome Berks County Patriots Legislative Chairman Rodney Miller. Oh, by the way, folks, at this point, actually, I'm not going to tell you because I'm not sure this is correct. Okay?
Thanks, Sam, but you used my time. Okay, good evening, folks. Yeah, this is the portion of the meeting I think you're all here for, which is, let's hear what the candidates have to say. And I can say that last month, we had the full gauntlet of the problems in Harrisburg, and tonight, we're going to find out more about what they are in D.C. And from my perspective, I see the political dysfunction in Washington as bad as I've ever seen it. And my first issue with politics was in 1968 when I sued the federal government for some rights. So I've been at it ever since, but what I've seen recently is about the zenith of dysfunctionality. I figure the chasm between the two parties is that wide and deep. If any one of either party crosses the middle and falls in the chasm, they're in the abyss. It's over. They're just not going to be working any longer at this point as a team. Frankly, if Trump wouldn't have made it, you wouldn't have heard about a lot of these things. It had all been under the rug, and people would have thought things are going to be happily ever after. So this has all been exposed, not created. So if I look at the situation today and look at the agenda, domestic policies, foreign policy, tax plan, trade policies, jobs. While one party is trying to get that accomplished, the other party is doing everything they can to block it and not have a success for the party in power. That's where we are. I'm here tonight trying to be a moderator, very nonpartisan. And my conservative views will show through. I can't help with that. It's me. So, I say it's a matter of opinion. Do you believe that we are headed in the right direction? Or do you believe we need to put a halt to things? That's where we are. And keep in mind, if we change party control in Congress, you've heard it more than once, impeachment of the president, impeachment of the new Supreme Court justice is on the horizon. the radical left. It's their goal. They need the power to do it. And if they get the power, it will happen. And keep in mind, 435 congressmen in this country, we only have to change 23 seats, and we change party power in Congress. And of those 23 seats, 3 of those are in Berks County. We have 3 open seats in Berks County that could change hands, and that's 3 of 23. And even the rest of the state with the redistricting, it's no telling how we're going to turn out after the election is over, because redistricting has generated constituencies in areas that were one party or not the other. So across the state, we're going to see the results of what this change of districts is going to amount to. So I'd say Berks County is really ground zero for the future of this country and Congress. If we lose 3 seats in Berks County, that's only 20 more to go out of the whole rest of the United States. So think about that when you go to the polls. Decide what you think is your interest and your citizen, your children and grandchildren's best interest. Now, the fact that I do play a nonpartisan role for the moderator tonight, we have one debate tonight. We have other candidates who will be speaking, but as I watch these TV commercials for the 2 candidates that will be debating, I start to wonder if I'm going to be the moderator or the referee. We'll find that out. But there's certainly a differences of opinion and some pretty sharp comments going back and forth. We have candidates tonight from all parties, and as Sam said, herding cats. Within the last 2 days, David, Congressman, Republican from the 4th District, and Macaulay, Congressman candidate for the 6th District, both canceled. So, I was fearful. I had a vacuum in the agenda. That's the downside. The upside is we negotiated today, and later on this evening, U.S. Senator candidate Lou Barletta will be here. So that's a bonus. Okay, as far as the agenda goes, I created enough guidelines so that we can keep a sense of order and hopefully stay within reason on schedule. I will allow the candidates time to state their position and introduce themselves, possibly 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. And after that, I have generated a lot of questions over the past several days that I think are issues we're concerned about. And if the candidates don't bring it out in their talk, I hope to bring it out in the questions. If we don't get it all covered during the candidates' speeches or even in the debate, hopefully at the end of the evening there'll be time, and we're going to have a forum type, a town hall forum, whereby you can ask your questions. If they don't get in early on, at the end of the evening, we'll have a microphone at the side. You just politely find your way over and ask your questions. We're going to emphasize no floor speeches. We got to get as much in as we can. Frame your question and ask it, and I'll see to it that politicians respond to the question and don't rabbit trail on that end, so we can keep things going. Okay, with that in mind, I said early on when I emailed the candidates if they would intend to be here, we did not advertise that we'll allow surrogates. I didn't want to have a parade of surrogates here instead of a parade of politicians. Unfortunately, since 2 of them canceled in the last day or 2, I still have an issue. However, we had Scott Wagner here twice, and he called me and asked if he could send someone to speak in his behalf. And because he gave us the time twice, I gave him a little slack, and I said I will allow someone to speak in his behalf. And with that in mind, I'm going to call Carol Bruyere up to the platform, and she will address comments that are appropriate, reflecting where Scott Wagner stands on the issues. Carol.
For inviting Scott Wagner here, and I apologize on behalf of Scott Wagner for not making it this evening. I do want to mention also to keep in your prayers John Kennedy. He was supposed to be here this evening as well. Unfortunately, came down with the flu. So, second surrogate is me. So I appreciate your patience. I just got this directly from Scott Wagner as he was landing in York before going to another event. So I'm going to read it verbatim, and then I appreciate your patience. Since I announced my run for governor back in Thank you. Since I announced my run for governor back in January of last year, I met thousands of people at every corner of the state. There is no shortage of issues. School tax on homes, jobs, life and pro-life, the sanctity of life in every life, the economy, skilled labor prices, DEP, PennDOT, labor and industry regulations, the heroin epidemic, the cost of health care, veterans issues, Common Core testing in schools, cost of tuition for colleges, the pension crisis, and at least 20 more issues. When I am governor, we will do zero-based budgeting in Harrisburg. For the first time in 20 to 30 years, we will balance our checkbooks. I will, and I mean this, I will hold every dollar spent in Harrisburg accountable. I have pledged to eliminate school property tax on homes. I will fire money managers who do not meet performance goals with our pension funds. I will rein in and out of control regulatory agencies. We will focus on retooling and reinventing our educational system to meet today's modern economy. More vocational trade programs. Not everyone is meant for college. There will not be a shortage of problems to solve. We will also seize the opportunities that will create jobs, grow our economy, and improve the lives of all our citizens. Our state needs leadership from a governor who understands the issues, talks to the people, and is willing to make the tough decisions not to be owned or influenced by special interest groups. In closing, as diplomatically as I can say this, I want to be, and I am determined to be, the next governor of Pennsylvania. I do not need the job, I do not need the money. I am not owned by anyone and cannot be bought. I am not politically correct, nor am I attempting to be. I will tell you how I see things, and I do not sugarcoat things. Governor Wolf is very confident that he is going to get reelected, and he has big plans, like at least $6 billion tax dollars increased in 2019. You can say goodbye to elimination of school property tax on your homes forever if Wolf is elected. We, and I say, we can't let this happen. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. Now, thank you and have a great evening. On behalf of me, I just want to say this organization and everyone out of here tonight ended up coming out for Donald Trump. It was phenomenal. It was nothing like it before. And I'm asking you to come together as a group so that on November 6th, we eliminate property tax. We save our children from abortion. We protect our veterans who serve this country and their families from struggling. We protect this nation from communist socialism. We protect this nation and our farmers, the agricultural farmers and the backbone of Pennsylvania. I encourage you all to come together and vote for a Republican ticket. This is a republic, like Sam Bracadora said, it's a two-party system right now. Okay, what happens in the future, we don't know. It's very uncertain. But if you don't elect our conservative candidates, it's going to be a lot worse. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your patience, and have a great evening.
Okay, we're going to move into our first speaker of the evening. And full disclosure, he's a libertarian, but like I said, as early as 1970, I'm one of the plank holders of the original Constitutional Party. I don't think the Constitutional Party and the Libertarians have too much difference, but strong conservative live in the government concept. So I don't consider libertarians foreign to some of the views of a lot of you folks here. And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce our candidate for governor for the Libertarian Party, and Project. I'll say, in case you didn't hear, we'd like you to go for 3 or 4 minutes telling us about yourself, and I have questions to throw out that you can respond to those. And if you will be supportive, just less questions.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Berks County Patriots for inviting me back tonight. This is the 4th time I've been here over the last 5 years or so. So what I'd like to do in my couple of minutes is introduce myself, introduce the party, and see if I can get a few minutes in to sneak in my campaign themes. Starting at the beginning, I just turned 65 years old. My wife Roberta and I have been married now for 41 years. We have 3 beautiful daughters, 3 grandchildren so far. And you know, our kids pick on us. They say, all of our friends' parents are divorced, separated. What's wrong with you guys? We've been married a long time. Good to stay together. Communication is really what does that. Professionally, I'm an information technology entrepreneur. I run my own company. And I hold 3 United States patents related to database theory. So if there are any geeks in the audience, maybe we can compare notes. I'm also an author. I've written a novel called Atlas Snug, a parody sequel to Iron Man's Atlas Shrug. And I'm also a Toastmaster. Any Toastmasters out there? A couple. The mission of Toastmasters is to provide a supportive environment for learning public speaking and leadership skills. I consider myself a product of their training, and I could not be standing here in front of you and holding up and being able to talk if I wasn't a Toastmaster. If you're going to take away one thing with you tonight, look at the Toastmasters. It empowers you. So I'm a family man, businessman, inventor, author, but most importantly, I'm a libertarian. We libertarians are different than the 2 old parties because we are the party of principle. Every law we support, every law we oppose can all be traced back to one central idea. The idea that your life is yours, that your property is yours, that you have the inalienable right to live your life your way without interference, provided only you respect the rights of property of your friends. That's it. Your life, your way, as long as you respect others. That's what it means to be a libertarian. It's the golden rule on a political level. And the public has reacted very strongly to this message. Since our founding in 1971, we have grown to become the 3rd largest party, hands down, outnumbering all the other 3rd parties put together. We have about 40 elected libertarians here in Pennsylvania, almost 200 nationwide, and we're growing. On the political scene, I like to call us 800-pound chihuahua. respect others. We're all libertarian. It's time, I say, that we actually start voting now. Bring that. So let me briefly address, what can you expect from a libertarian governor? Obviously, you're going to find somebody who's going to respect your right to live your life your way. Now, when it comes to the campaign, I stole my campaign feed from Pennsylvania's most famous citizen, Benjamin Franklin. When asked about the Constitution, federal Constitution, he said, "It appears that it is working and it's going to be permanent. But in this life, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." Well, not meaning to challenge Mr. Franklin, but the theme of my campaign is death and taxes. I am the death and taxes candidate. It is my goal as governor of Pennsylvania to reduce both as much as humanly possible. I can get into details, but I bet it's going to be questions putting away the taxes and death.
Yes, in all fairness, I don't offer softball questions. You'll have to field them. But one of the differences your party may have with a lot of folks here is your position on Roe versus Wade. Where do you stand on that?
I was raised Roman Catholic, Philadelphia, so my roots are certainly pro-life. But when I look at it, it's a divisive issue. And doesn't need to be. I've gone to the abortion clinics on Sunday mornings and I've talked to both sides. When people say, "Ken, are you pro-life or pro-choice?" I smile and I say, yes. Because you see, there is a way to defuse the abortion crisis. Those of you who picked up my flyer in the back, I got my 12-step plan to reform Pennsylvania. Number 8 is defuse the abortion crisis. And the way to do that, one little change to the not the abortion laws, but the adoption laws. And that's to allow for prenatal adoption. Now, if a woman does not want her unborn child, that means anybody can step forward and adopt it while it's still in the womb. And of course, they would pay for the delivery cost. Through the privacy of the doctor, they would ask the woman, "Please bring the child to term." And she could say yes or no. That's pro-choice. But if she says yes, the adoptive parents would pay for the delivery, and we just saved the baby. Since a lot of babies are aborted for economic reasons, we are guaranteed to reduce the number of abortions while still preserving a woman's right to choose.
Abolish abortion now. Still pro-choice.
One step at a time.
No crowd heckling. However, let me try one more. We have our other speaker here, and that's fine. Another hardball question that I think could be mixed feelings is, we have an opioid epidemic. We have Colorado, for example, legalized marijuana. All of Canada legalized marijuana. What's your position on legalizing drugs of various natures?
Do you know that every 2.5 hours another Pennsylvanian dies unnecessarily from this opioid crisis? It's insane. Every 2.5 hours. But from the time you got up this morning to the time you got here today, what's that, 4 people, 5 people done? But if I told you there was a way we could reduce opioid use by 75% and reduce opioid deaths by 85%, would I catch your interest? Because these are the numbers being reported by the Portugal Health Ministry. In 2001, they took a completely different route, a compassionate route to the drug war. They ended their insane war on drugs. Virtually all opioid deaths are accidental, either from quality control, because they're street drugs, or because they're mixed with some commonly available things like alcohol. So what Portugal did is they ended their war on drugs. Instead of treating it as a criminal situation, they treated it as a social situation. They provide free drug testing on the corners. So somebody buys something, says, "Oh, okay, careful, it's got fentanyl in it. Oh, careful, it's got coffee made in it. Go get your money back." So they stop deaths from accidental deaths from purity issues. They also provide free healthcare work, social work, to advise them of the things they should avoid. 85% reduction in deaths of opioid crisis. As governor of Pennsylvania, I'm going to use the power of the party Starting on day one, I'm going to pardon every single nonviolent drug offender. War on drugs in Pennsylvania will end the day I become governor. And you can live another 2.5 hours without hearing from another death.
Okay, Ken, we're going to move along now, and I'll tell you what, we're going to have a town hall at the end, and you get another chance to respond to questions. And we're going to try to get the next speaker up here to keep it rolling with. Thanks an awful lot for your information. Okay, we've just been advised that our speaker has arrived. And I want to say something before I bring Lou Barletta up here, is I go back to Lou Barletta when he was mayor of Hazleton. I recall when he ran the very first time for Congress. I don't know if anybody other than myself was anybody up in Hazleton when Lou Barletta won his first election, besides me. Anybody? Okay. So from that day forward, he became a household name. But over the period of time, I've got to know Lou's position on issues, and generally say he speaks my language. So from when I first met him till today, I think he's the right kind of guy to get in there, and we get rid of a guy that's just taking up space. With that in mind, I'd like to bring Lou Barletta front to the stage.
Great to be here. Campaign's going really great. I can't tell you the excitement and what we feel. I just came from another event, and somebody said, well, what about your seat? And I said, don't worry about my seat. Dan Muser is going to do a great job making sure. Listen, we've been traveling now for over a year around the state, and I have never felt more momentum than what I'm feeling now. You know, as we go around, people are beginning to look at the candidates now. The contrast between Bob Casey and myself, and the contrast couldn't be any greater. I mean, you couldn't have two candidates that are so far apart on issues than Bob Casey Jr. and myself. You know, we all know the story, you know, how I ran and why I decided to run. You know, I got a call in my apartment one night, was with my dog Riley, and phone rang, came up unknown, didn't answer it, didn't know who it was, rang again, came up Capitol operator, never saw a call like that, so I didn't answer it. Third call was my chief of staff. She said, answer the phone, the president's calling you. I answered the phone, and it was President Trump. He said, hey Lou, it's Donald. Listen, you're doing a great job in the House. I need you in the Senate, announced tomorrow. And he said, I'll think about it. I'll get behind you, you can't lose, announced tomorrow. I thought, well, I think I should talk to my wife. He said, okay, call him when we're done and announce tomorrow. And you know, I began to think about it, and then something happened. If you remember, we actually had a chance to repeal and replace Obamacare, and John McCain had voted no, and it had lost by 1 vote. And I thought, you know, if I were there instead of Bob Casey, Obamacare would be gone today. Woo! It'll be the next Supreme Court pick. Little did I know that it would. So I got in, and you know, obviously it was going to be an uphill battle. Everybody said, you're crazy. How are you going to do this? You're way behind in the polls, just like they said with Donald Trump. There's no way Donald Trump can win Pennsylvania. He's so far back in the polls. Well, to be truthful, when we started this campaign a year ago, we were back in the polls. We were back by 17 points. Then we got it down to 15 points. Then I went on a red, white, and blue bus tour with Riley, my dog, and we started traveling around. Then President Trump came into Mohegan Sun. That was pretty exciting. And then after that, he said, where are we going next? I said, well, we're going to go to Western PA. And then he came out into Erie. And then Mike Pence came in and did an event for me in Philadelphia. We begin to see the polling numbers go from 17, 15, 12, 9. And now what happens, Bob Casey begins to spend millions of dollars doing negative ads. Millions. He actually started in the beginning of August doing negative ads. And I thought to myself, you know, if you're up by double digits and you have as much money as Bob Casey is, you would not be running negative ads in August. If he didn't see what we saw, if he wasn't feeling what we were feeling, that something was happening again in Pennsylvania, just like it did 2 years ago, you wouldn't have to do that. And the polls went from 12 to 9, and after $5 million of negative ads against me, the last poll we had was 7, and that was before the Kavanaugh hearings. And then the whole country got to see that. The whole country got to see the Democrats try to smear a good man and his family. And they wouldn't stop. They went back to high school. It didn't matter. He was guilty and he had to prove himself innocent. And even though, you know, there was nothing that they could say, they still went after him. And at the time, the American people saw politics at its lowest level. Until now. I thought that moment, watching Brett Kavanaugh, I felt so sorry for him and his family. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be involved in something that is even lower than what we witnessed on TV. I don't know if any of you have followed this, but I have 8 grandchildren. We were blessed with twins, my oldest daughter. These were miracle babies. There was a miracle behind the birth of these 2 little babies. Beautiful little boy, beautiful little girl named Reagan, little boy named Jordan. About 7 or 8 weeks ago, we found out little Jordan was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 18 months, a very serious cancer. After we took Jordan and got him down to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, I had to attend the 9/11 ceremony in Shanksville. I was very upset. Happened to bump into Bob Casey and his wife. And in a private conversation, I told Bob Casey the whole story about my grandchildren, about these twins and how we were blessed to have them. And the fact that Jordan was just diagnosed with cancer, and how hard it was for me to campaign with this on my mind. My family was so upset, not knowing if Jordan is going to be okay or not. In the meantime, last week my brother passes away. Bob Casey knew, sent a letter. We had buried him on a Friday, last Friday. On Saturday, Bob Casey began running commercials, an attack ad, mirroring my situation with my grandson and the twins in cancer. And the mother in the commercial, talking about her twins that have cancer, said that if Lou Barletta had his way, children like mine would be denied health care. As if I would deny my own grandson health care and let him die. Well, my daughter, who had been a pillar of strength to this point, was obviously crushed. My wife, my other daughters, myself. In a plea for decency, I begged that Bob Casey would please take this commercial down, take this attack ad down. How much it has hurt my family, how difficult it is. We don't know if Jordan's going to be okay. God bless that mother in that commercial. Her little girls are now graduated from high school and are good. I'm thankful for that. But we don't know Jordan's going to be okay. He needs 42 weeks of chemotherapy at the age of 18 months and radiation. And to see a commercial like that, for political purposes, use children with cancer, twins nonetheless, with cancer like I'm going through, and then say that if I had my way, those children would be denied health care. Is it probably as low as anyone could ever get? It is evil. It's not even low. It is evil. Nobody with an ounce of decency would ever do that to a family that's already hurting. And in my plea to please stop it, I was told no. I was told no by his campaign. They will not take it down. And then his statement was, well, votes have consequences, and you will be held accountable in November. That was his answer to me. It wasn't, I'm sorry. It wasn't, we didn't realize. It wasn't that, oh, I forgot your grandson has, I don't know how you forget the story that I told him. It was none of that. It was votes have consequences, and you will be accountable for years in November. And they continued to run the ads. And it wasn't until there was an outrage from people who were just literally shocked that somebody could stoop to that level for political purposes, to win an election, would do something like this. Under pressure, again, he comes back and says, oh, I didn't realize the parallel of your situation in my exact commercial. But because this may have hurt your family, we will take it down in the Scranton media market. So it's evil enough to run, not to run in Scranton, but not evil enough to pull it down anywhere else in the state. So everywhere else in the state, as we speak, this horrible, horrific ad, which he knows has hurt my family, is continuing to run. I question what happens when my daughter takes little Jordan to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, and her and her husband happen to be sitting in the waiting room, and this commercial comes on, or when I'm in a hotel in Altoona, and I have to see it. Is this where we have come? Is this the level that the American people should expect of politicians? That we would stoop so low to hurt people when they're already hurting? Listen, the fire in my stomach couldn't be burning any harder right now. Because the American people deserve better than that. You deserve better. You deserve somebody who's going to represent you that won't stoop that low. That even a child, an infant with cancer, isn't enough to make you stop attacking. So, for all those out there who think that this election is over, they ain't seen nothing yet. That would put their own political career, their own fact that they might lose power, to the point that they don't care how bad they hurt you, they don't care what your circumstances is, they don't even care if your grandson has cancer. That they're going to use that. And I'm going to tell you something else. I am sick and tired of politicians scaring people to get elected. I couldn't tell the difference between commercial and commercial. This using senior citizens to try to scare them. I said, Bob Casey, I'll save you a lot of money. Nobody is going to hurt senior citizens. We are not going to take one penny away from Social Security. We're not going to affect your Medicare, save your money, and here's something else. Nobody with pre-existing conditions will be denied health care in America. Nobody. And nobody will be dropped from their health plan if they have pre-existing conditions, and we're not going to let anybody raise your premium if you did. And he knows I have voted for that, and still will scare people who are sick, people who have illnesses, cancer, diabetes, and try to make them think that somehow if you vote for that Republican, if you vote for that Lou Barletta, he's going to have your insurance taken out. How cruel can you be to use senior citizens who are afraid? I'm not going to take a chance to vote for Lou Barletta. He might take away my Social Security. Is that how bad you went? Is that what America deserves? I think they deserve better. I think we need to stop this. Be honest. Be an honest politician. Don't use people. Don't use scare tactics. And don't pick on a family who's scared to death of the cancer that is in their 18-month-old grandson child to get reelected. So I want to thank you for all your support. I want to tell you that when I beat Bob Casey, I will never stoop to that level to get elected. Never, 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 because you deserve better.
for U.S. Senate, we got another gentleman who wants to see Casey on unemployment. So with that in mind, I would like to bring forward candidate for U.S. Senate on the Libertarian ticket, Dale Kearns.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Dale Kearns, and I'm running against Bob Casey. I chose to run against Bob Casey. Actually, I decided to make it my mission around 2011 when Bob Casey came out and voted for the National Defense Authorization Act and authorized indefinite detention of American citizens. When I heard that, I paid attention to everything Casey did after that. Bob Casey grew government. Bob Casey raised taxes. Bob Casey bloated the deficit. Everything Bob Casey did was a rubber stamp for Barack Obama. As a former Republican, a disgruntled Republican, sick and tired of my party and the other parties putting up stale, stagnant candidates that can't win, that don't excite the base, I decided to become a libertarian. I decided to join a party about principles. And I decided to run for the United States Senate to take on individuals like Bob Casey, like Lou Barletta, guys that don't like the free market, guys that will not get rid of Obamacare. We have a House, a presidency, and a Senate controlled by Republicans, and we cannot get rid of Obamacare. The deficit keeps growing and growing. I am sick and tired of seeing this. We keep hearing, oh, the next election, midterms, we need a new president, we have to get rid of this guy and that guy. It never happens. Since the 70s, we've been talking about the same issues. We've been talking about immigration. We've been talking about foreign policy. We've been talking about abortion. We've been talking about all these same issues that are in this election since the 70s. All they want to do is keep us against one another. R versus D, red versus blue. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I hope you are too. Because I believe in freedom. I believe in liberty. I believe in the free market. That's why I propose free market solutions. Because the free market is you and I. Government cannot solve our problems. So that's why I ask you to join me. Join me in this peaceful revolution as we take on the two-party system, as we take on Lou Barletta, as we take on Bob Casey, and as we actually change things with real solutions, solutions to problems that everyday people have. Now, as a libertarian, I've had some challenges. I'm the first third-party candidate, not just libertarian, independent, and third party, to poll in double digits. Last quarter, I raised $180,000. No libertarian has done that in their entire election cycle until I came along. So we have a chance. As we move forward throughout this process, when I've been included in the polls, Bob Casey's numbers have decreased. My opponent on the Republican side, his numbers have stayed stagnant the entire time. Because he doesn't excite the base. And that's what I'm here to do. Excite the base, not over me, over the ideals of liberty, the ideals of freedom, the ideals that founded this country. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dale. I'll try to hit a couple of things that your running mate did not cover, or I didn't ask the question, but illegal immigration. Very expensive for this country to house, maintain correction facilities, and monitor the border. The most attractive thing that people have from Central America is public welfare, federal assistance financially, and jobs by scrupulous businessmen that have no problem paying cash so they can take their money home tax-free. I'd like to know where you stand on illegal immigration.
I think one of the greatest problems that we have in this country is our divide over illegal immigration. And I think that the only way that we can solve the problem is by immigration reform. Not one person in this room, at least I don't believe so, can point to a single process or a single line where someone can stand in line and tell someone this is how you become a citizen. No one can point to a single checklist. No one knows the actual process. When my ancestors came over, they came over at Ellis Island, and there was a process. They actually had a line to stand in. We need to get back to something along those lines. We need real immigration reform to where people can come here freely. Good people. Good people can become part of our society and our community, just like my grandparents did, just like many of your grandparents and ancestors did. We need to get back to that. And the way we don't solve the problem is by bringing all these different enforcement enterprises in. We have multiple enforcement enterprises that are just sucking up our budget, and they're not even doing the job. After 9/11, we replaced it. Well, we already had someone who was supposed to be taking care of this, the Immigration and Naturalization Department. They both take the same budget to do the same job. And if it was done effectively, we would not even have this issue being talked about today. So I think we need to get back to our constitutional roots, define an immigration process, and allow people to come here legally so that we can allow them into our communities.
Thank you. Let's try one more. Being a libertarian, I'm assuming you very emphatically support individual rights. Second Amendment. All we hear about is pump stocks, semi-automatic rifles, military-style weapons, ammunition clips, gun show restrictions, license to carry, reciprocity law, background checks, stronger penalties for committing crime with a gun. It's all over the map. Just tell us in a reasonable amount of words where you stand on our rights based on the Second Amendment.
In a reasonable amount of words, the Second Amendment is interpreted word for word. It shall not be questioned. It shall not be infringed. The federal government, even with a constitutional amendment, has no authority to take away your Second Amendment right. I doubt anyone in this room would let them do that, even if they did. The Constitution says that you have a right to own a firearm. It doesn't say that you have a right to own a firearm if it's not loaded in your car. It doesn't say you have a right to own a firearm as long as you keep it locked up in a safe in your home. It doesn't say that you can't take it across state lines. It doesn't say it's for target shooting or hunting or anything else for that matter. It says that you have a right to own a firearm. And that right is to protect yourself or to do whatever you want legally as long as you're not affecting the rights or property of others.
Okay, Dale, I think we'll move on to our next candidate, and we be around the town hall and read those photos. Okay, with that, we're going to move into the debate. And I'm not going to be a Alex Trebek. I'm going to let the candidates talk. So with that in mind, I'd like our two candidates running for the 9th District come forward. Mr. Wolf and Mr. Mueller. Came to the stage, that's the order we're going to let them up and introduce themselves. I'm going to allow them to be seated here. We have a third microphone. Is that microphone ready to go, Sam? The one over there. Okay. And what we're going to do, I'm going to let Dan let us know why he's running and who he is.
Testing.
Can't hear you. Mic is off.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay. After their opening comments, we'll then ask for a position on several issues which I feel confident are the primary issues this group here is interested in, and we'll see where we go from there. I'm not going to allow any rabbit trails. I hope we'll get as many questions and answers as we can to get a real perspective of the position of each candidate. And with that, I'll let Dan go first.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, everybody. Great to be here. Sam, Ron, thank you all very much. I'm very happy to be here. Boy, we're
Not on.
in, not quite yet because of the Trump rally, but we're getting there. Can't hear me? How about now?
In and out.
Testing, testing.
Testing. All right. So, we got it right. We're going to stay getting it right. So, everybody, I know most of you. We've gotten to know each other all throughout Berks County very much. As I think you know, public service is very important. This election is extremely important. And for me, the desire to be in public service goes way back. You know, when I was young, my father was a police officer, and it was the mid-'70s. And we had Democrats in charge in the late '70s. Jimmy Carter was president, and things weren't going so well. We had long lines at the gas stations. We had embargoes against our country. And I'll never forget, I was about 12 years old when Jimmy Carter came on TV one day and said, well, folks, this is the way it's going to be. This is as good as America gets. Put on a sweater. It's going to be a cold winter. And I remember thinking right there, no, this is not the America my parents taught me. This was not what I read in the history books, the greatness of what this country is supposed to be about. One day I'm going to have the opportunity to do things better, and be a far better leader than this man I'm watching. A few years later, Ronald Reagan came along. And it started with inspiration, it led to confidence, it led into policy, and we had the booming 80s. And it created great opportunity for a lot of us. It gave pride in our nation, we were inspired, and from my standpoint, it allowed me an opportunity to join a very small company here in Pennsylvania. That company, Pride Mobility Products, makes the finest mobility products in the world. Was with the company for over 25 years. Started, as I said, a very small business, moved into a large business. I served as president of the company for 7 years. You learn a lot during the course of helping grow a company. We have over 750 employees in Luzerne County and throughout northeast Pennsylvania. I got politically involved. I met Tom Corbett, our former governor, in 2010 when he was running for governor. And he offered me the position of working at being secretary of the Department of Revenue for the Commonwealth. I accepted. I truly wanted to get into public service, and it was something that I looked forward to doing better than had been done before. Well, we dug in. We set out a mission to transform the department from a traditional tax collection agency into a taxpayer advocacy organization. It took me a little while to get the 2,000 employees there to understand exactly what that mission was. What it meant was to treat taxpayers like customers, to go out of your way for them, to improve their lives, not work as government tends to against what is in their interest. And it worked. As a result of our work, we were named the most improved Department of Revenue in the country by the Council on State Taxation during my tenure. So now I'm running for Congress. I'm running for a number of reasons. It starts with love of country, and I do not like at all. I'm very frustrated, like many of you, of how our government treats our taxpayers. There's far too much special interest, far too much self-interest, not enough we the people interest. My vow is to the Constitution and to the people that I serve. I'm also running because I think it's an exciting time. Lou Barletta decided to run for Senate. Lou said to me, Dan, I'm going to run for the U.S. Senate. I need somebody to run for my seat, and I think you should do it. The reason is, and he gave me his reason. We need a conservative, first of all. We need someone with business experience who knows about results, not rhetoric. And we need someone to go to Washington to support the President's America First agenda. I said, Lou, and he knew before he laid that out to me. I fit that criteria. So now I'm running, and that is our mission, as well as being a regular face here in Berks County, working with you all, bringing my business experience, my desire to serve, to work with the other elected officials, community leaders here in Berks County. And folks, what we're going to do is together, and only together, win this election. We're going to keep America great, and we're going to make Berks County great again as well. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to hear the other side of the coin, which is, and let's see if we can get the contrast going here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here this evening, folks. Some of you know I'm a dairy farmer. My farm is up in Columbia County. I farmed there. I'm the third generation on this farm, and my wife and I have a herd of registered Holsteins. Our farm has been in our family before that 5 different generations. They trail back into Lancaster County. So we know what it's like to work for a living. We know what it's like to raise 5 kids on a dairy farm and send them to college and pay for their health care. I had decided to run for the United States Congress when I looked at Congress, and I decided that Congress forgot what this country was built on. The people in the middle class, the working families, the farmers, the people that are in the factories, the nurses, the teachers, they do not have a voice in Congress today. They are in the forgotten land. They desperately need a voice. The far left seems to be doing well. The far right seems to be doing well. But the section in the middle desperately needs someone there to represent them. So that's why I decided to run. Look, I've been traveling around this district for the last, since it was defined more specifically, in March. And I've been at fire halls, I've been at county fairs, I have been at block parties, I have been at senior citizen centers, and I have been listening to what people say they need. The number one issue is the divide, the polarization. They are tired of the fighting in D.C. They want to see people that go down there and will extend their hand and say, look, we've got a tough job ahead of us. We have a big agenda. We need to start solving problems. We need to stop throwing hand grenades. We need to start moving this country in the right direction. And that is exactly what I plan to do. And it's a big agenda. It's health care reform. Big issue. Not necessarily a simple issue. Big issue. I mean, I hear it from people in nursing homes that say, you know, they have to take out a loan to get their teeth fixed. Unbelievable. It's just, the prices are outrageous. Social Security. What are they going to do about my Social Security? In Pennsylvania, around 40% of the population lives off of their Social Security. It's their only source of income. $1,400 a month. Amazing. They're concerned. They're concerned about their future. There are just a few. I know some of the questions will get into the issues in a deeper dive. Be anxious and eager to talk about them as we go through them. So once again, it's great to be here this evening. Berks County has a great agriculture heritage. When I was Secretary of Agriculture, I spent many days here on this fairgrounds, worked with some of the people in this room, helped them solve problems, address their issues. When I was Secretary of Agriculture, I worked for a Democratic governor. I worked for a very, very conservative Republican constituency, and that's the farmers here in Pennsylvania. Never had a problem. I never asked them what their party was. I only asked them what their problems were and what I could do to help solve them. So it's great to be here this evening, and I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'll tell you how we'll do this, fellas. I'm gonna ask questions alternately. Whoever I direct it to, the other person can respond to whatever degree they take exception or agree. The only thing is, I want you folks to have this microphone, if I can get this other one working, or the one down at the table. Okay. Let's try this again.
Nope. Nope.
Is this one working?
Yeah.
Well,
Not anymore. Not anymore.
testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Are these made in China? Testing this one? Okay. Stay close. Stay close. Okay. Mr. Wilk, you left the...
Nope.
Government regulations.
Nope.
Government regulations. Has the federal government, EPA, gone too far regulating land use, and in particular farming, lumbering, with respect to protecting the environment, such as water runoff, fertilization, or do we need more restrictions?
Look, when I was Secretary of Agriculture, I was responsible for the State Conservation Commission. I chaired it on a rotating basis. So I had a good idea about what regulations were like, the intention of those regulations. In many cases, they were well-intended, but the practical application and the enforcement many times created hardships on farmers. I do not think you should have unfunded mandates. I do not think regulations should come down on farmers and small businesses with no money, where the farmers and the business owners have to take the money out of their checking accounts and pay for them. I'll have to say that the thing that I admire most about President Trump, when he pulled back and stepped up to the WOTUS regulations, to the WOTUS law, that was a problem for the farmers because there was not a clear definition in what waterways were. Farmers were very concerned about how those regulations could be overreaching. So he stepped in, he stopped that. It was very much appreciated by farmers like myself, and no one dislikes overreaching regulations more than a dairy farmer.
Well, I think we all know, we're honest with each other, that the party that is about over-regulating are the Democrats, and particularly the Washington Democrats, and the state does a pretty good job of it as well. While Barack Obama was president, some of us in the room, present company included, voted for, as well as Hillary Clinton. Under Barack Obama, that's where WOTUS began. WOTUS against the U.S., right? Where they claim that a wet spot on a farm or on your land is something that should be overseen by the federal government. Right? Only non-navigable waterways, of course, should fall under the jurisdiction of states. You know, the list of President Trump has gone through some great deregulations over the last 2 years. It's taken great burdens off of companies. It's really unleashed them. And if it weren't for the president and the Republicans, those deregulations and regulations reforms would not have taken place. The coal industry. I spent time in coal mines with coal miners, both independents and large companies. They're wildly overregulated. The Democrats, again, put regulations on them that are fitting for bituminous coal, not for our anthracite. So they're on the verge of going out of business. We talk about dairy farms. The dairy farm price of milk had never been lower since 2006 and 2007, lower than it is now. While the gentleman to my left was the agricultural secretary, and of course Barack Obama was president. Michelle Obama thought it was a great idea to say that whole milk shouldn't be allowed in schools. So we lost a generation of milk drinkers. So folks, look, if we want to stay on the right path, we've got to keep the House in the hands of Republicans. Some of the things that are going to be said here tonight are simply not the Democrat position during the primary. We're now seeing 3 weeks out before a general election in a plus 14 Republican district, how so quickly the narrative changes. We have to stay on the path that we're on. We need to continue to reduce regulations in order to continue to keep our country great. Unfortunately, Sam, I have no second mic to keep this thing moving, but I just want to emphasize, if we could be within a minute or two of each answer, we'll get more questions in. I appreciate that. I'll take the next one and let Mr. Wolf respond to Mr. Mooser's answer. Balance of trade. With China, is off the scale, $309 billion last year. Conversely, China owns more U.S. property than we do of China, which reduces the balance of trade to some degree. They have no respect for our patents or our intellectual property. U.S. manufacturers recognize the problem, but look at the bottom line, profit versus U.S. manufacturing costs, and tolerate the trade-off. What do you see needs to be done to resolve this issue?
Trade agreements are the #1 issue for farmers. And the tariff war has created a lot of hardship on farmers in Pennsylvania, particularly dairy farmers, because they got hit right out of the chute. In June, milk prices dropped $1.65 per hundredweight. And the dairy farmers take it on the shins immediately because their milk is at the driveway every day. So their milk check, that price is reflected 2 weeks later. Other parts of agriculture have problems also. Certainly the soybean prices have been one that catches a lot of headlines. Those farmers can store them and take their time in selling them, but they're still facing really big challenges now because they have bins full of soybeans that they have to sell at $8.30 a bushel, as opposed to $11 before the tariff war. And now they're looking at how they're going to do that and how they're going to pay off their operating loans. They have to sell it because they have a crop in the field that's coming in here in the next week or two. So they're big issues, they're big problems. China is a large consuming country. We need to figure out how we're going to put in place an endgame plan that satisfies the questions that were just asked about how we're going to deal with some of the things about China that we do not like. We have no endgame plan. That is my concern right now. I'm not looking at pointing fingers at anybody and saying who's at fault or who isn't at fault. We're at where we're at today. We have farmers that are going out of business. We need to decide what we're asking for, and then we need to get our negotiators' butts on a plane and fly over there and get this thing solved. Because every day this is prolonged, there is more farm families going out of business. And that's not only a farmer going out of business, that's a huge amount of money to the local economy that is facing, that is also leaving when the farmer shuts his doors and turns out the lights.
A lot of that is already happening, as we know. The president decided that enough was enough. America was getting pushed around with the trade agreements that have been in existence since 1945. China has been cheating on every trade treaty or agreement that existed. Canada had a 200% dairy tax on the U.S. milk. NAFTA had gotten out of control. Mexico, too, was having its way with us. Laws were not being enforced, and pretty much nothing was being done, and our manufacturing was going down. Our steel manufacturing was also going down, and we had a problem. And President Trump came in and recognized this problem. He tried to negotiate initially, but sometimes you got to carry a big stick along with having to carry. So we went into what we all planned on what would be short-term trade battle. And in a very short term, as I think we saw, we worked out an agreement with Canada
where dairy was the main focus, one of the main focuses. So dairy is now far less of a tariff, or really a trade barrier that existed before. We worked out a deal with Mexico and the EU. So we're just waiting on finishing with the Pacific Rim as well as China. But folks, look what's happened just in the last year and a half. And if nobody in this room is going to fool themselves and think that if Hillary Clinton or a Democrat, if the Democrats are in charge, this would be happening. Every piece of data, manufacturing confidence hasn't been higher since 1969. Wages are up. Consumer spending is up. Our economy is rolling better than 1984. Now, we still have a lot to do. We've got to repeal and replace Obamacare. We've got to continue to deregulate. We do need to make the tax cuts permanent. There's still a lot of work to do, and that's why we need people that understand results and will be part of focusing on the results and work on the President's America First agenda, not go into Congress and obstruct, resist.
Chairman said it's a one mic night. We didn't get our sequence in order there, so I'm going to go back and say, Dan, you'll take the next question first, and then Mr. Wolf respond. Illegal immigration. If the word in the street that one comes to America, there's handouts awaiting at home, and unskilled, tax-free jobs available from unscrupulous employers, there would be less attraction to cross the Rio Grande. Build the wall, DACA, MS-13, pathway to citizenship, chain immigration, Mexico being the underground railroad from Central America to the U.S., federal handouts to illegal immigrants, or simply the cost of retaining them. We've heard all the suggestions and we know all the acronyms. How are we going to fix this problem? I'm going to ask the flag man, let's try to go for a minute and a half and answer so we get more in.
Well, when I travel around the district, one of the main issues that comes up is certainly the problem with illegal immigration. We need to tackle it right away. If we have a Republican Congress, Republican House, I'm sure we will in the first few months of next year. Our borders continue to be weak. The laws that exist are not enforced well enough, and we have one side of the aisle that think that's just a terrific situation. I am for the wall. Things have to start with the wall. I'm building the wall. I am for defunding sanctuary cities. And completely against amnesty, because that is a Democrat long-term goal of turning those here illegally into citizens and then voters. So that is not what we need either. So we truly do need an understanding of what the problem is. We need to enforce the laws that do exist, yet we need to reform the laws so as they work, and we provide a workforce as well for our farmers. Because folks, over the years, farming has had seasonal, annual work visa workforce. That does need to continue, so I am for certainly the H-2A, but there's a new bill coming across called H-2C that Republicans have led the way on, and that is something that will be very important to our farmers.
I look at immigration reform in three specific issues. First is border security. Border security is a huge part of national security. Make that very clear. Border security can be accomplished in different ways. Building a wall that's projected to cost between $20 and $40 billion, some people have it estimated at $70 billion, I think is outrageous when we're looking at a deficit of $21 trillion. When you talk to the DEA and you talk to the border security detail, they say there is a better way to solve the problem. They say towers with cameras, motion detectors will work very well. That is the DEA and the border security's opinion. Now look, I think a lot of times people in Congress with a suit on can get down there and figure out how to solve problems when they've never been to the border. But I think this is one of the cases where that just doesn't hold true. We need to make sure we secure our borders. The DEA and the Border Patrol say that this is like trying to solve a 21st century problem with a 14th century solution by building a wall. It's costly and it wouldn't be as effective. Number two, we need to overhaul our visa program. It does not work. It is too burdensome, it is too bureaucratic, it is too slow, it is not dependable, and the farmers I talk to say, we're not going to put tomatoes out this year. Keith Eckel's not going to put tomatoes out this year. He says he's not going to do it because you can't depend on that system. So we need to make sure that that system is put in place and works better. An H2C an H3C program is something that's been proposed that I know that livestock agriculture in particular likes. It is an extended visa, like 2 or 3 years, and then after that, 2 or 3 years, they can either do a touchback or possibly have their visa renewed and stay here. So some good ideas on the board. I think we'll get legislation in the next year.
Thank you. Flag man, let's give him 30 seconds on this one. It's an easy one. It's almost a yes or no. Roe versus Wade, pro-life, pro-choice. Just state your position in 30 seconds. I am pro-life. I am very pro the sanctity of innocent human life. I believe that Planned Parenthood is out of control and should be defunded. And yes, I believe Roe versus Wade should be eliminated and should be under the jurisdiction of the states. I am strongly pro-life.
I oppose late-term abortion. For me, my personal opinion of abortion is that it should be the very last resort. But I also think it's just that. It's a personal decision. I think it's between a woman and her doctor. And I do not think the government should step in the middle of that.
Let's pick under previous administration for the last 8 years and beyond. Past administration gave billions to Iran and North Korea. Some would say it's a bribe to our adversaries, or as Neville Chamberlain said back in 1939, or would have said today, we bought peace in our time. Nonetheless, the arms and the nuclear development of both countries continued with our money. Did our foreign policy buy time to avoid a major conflict, or did we dig a deeper hole that we may not even be able to fill? Where do you stand on foreign aid to adversarial countries?
Foreign policy is a tough one. You know, it's economic and it's military. You know, when we look at the countries and, you know, the different parts of the world that are certainly, there's a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and that, of course, goes immediately to the Middle East. We have some friends in the Middle East, and we have some enemies in the Middle East. The Middle East is still important to us in the terms of where we're going to get our oil from. We've done a great job in closing that gap. We're starting to export some oil, and we're certainly less dependent than we were many years ago. But when we have countries in the Middle East that can use our help, it is a good investment in making sure that we fund them and we help them fight our battles for us. In particular, you know, Saudi Arabia and Israel, especially in terms of countries over there that have been allies of ours, and we need to continue to work with them going forward to ensure that the Middle East is under control, because it is a...
I think once again, the United States has been being taken advantage of over the years. America first. That doesn't mean America alone, certainly, but it does mean, just as we say family first, it's okay to say America first, country first. We've been taken advantage of. We need to highly scrutinize any dollars going overseas. We continue to drive debts that are not favorable, to say the least, for us or our children. I think it's been quite well pointed out that even on a NATO front, our so-called allies aren't paying their fair share, which has changed. And there are other areas that we are gaining our allies, so-called allies, and others to also pay up where they hadn't before, including the United Nations. You know, there's dollars going to countries that are not friendly to us. All right, so yes, Congress, and I do think the executive office is waking up to the fact that if you're going to receive help and assistance and support from the United States, you need to maintain a certain level of standard for humanitarianism and just living in a manner that's appropriate in this day and age.
Let's expand that one little bit further. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, from Benghazi to using a private server, to smashing hard drives, to withholding security level email, would you believe these to be crimes against our nation, or even treason, and could even be defined as treason? Would you support full determination of responsibility and prosecution for our former Secretary of State?
Lock her up! Lock her up! Well, to me it's kind of simple, right? The law is the law. It should be enforced equally, whether you're Hillary Clinton or one of us. So there were some serious laws broken, particularly with the server situation. And there were many other issues that were certainly obviously being uncovered, such as the Clinton Foundation, right? I mean, right now we have this issue with Saudi Arabia, and it certainly looks like something terrible happened there, and it sounds like the Saudis were involved. But what's happening now is the Democrats who, you know, talk about reaching across, they're trying to politicize this, just like they politicized the Kavanaugh hearings, and somehow blame Donald Trump for what occurred over in Turkey. So, at the Saudi embassy. What about looking back at all the money that the Clinton Foundation gained from Saudi Arabia while she was in office, and while, of course, Bill was out of office? Is she going to give that $25 million back to the Saudis? So, once again, we got to stop fooling ourselves. We need people who are going to talk about the truth, focus on the truth, because when you focus on truth, that's when you can solve problems, right? If you're fooling yourself and acting as if something's not true or not happening, then you can obviously never resolve the situation.
Look, I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan, especially the last couple of weeks. It hasn't been good. But I do believe in due process. And I don't know that I'm in a position to sit here and say what I would or wouldn't do when I had all the information. But I believe that if she violated the law that justifies that she should be in jail, then she should be in jail. But I believe in due process, and there should be a method and a system to go through that to see it.
Okay, let's address an issue that affects both parties adversarially, I might add. National debt. The overwhelming part of the federal budget is entitlements, and the elected officials make the case that approximately 80% of the budget is fixed with built-in increases. Do you have any recommendations to address government costs, and especially reducing the national debt, which is a direct attack on the diminishing value of the dollar?
Well, look, I'm a farmer, so I know that there's two sides of the ledger. There's income and there's expense, and there has to be a correlation there. You can't borrow your way out of debt, and you can't pass it on to your kids and your grandkids. So it has to be dealt with. I'm not sure I have all the answers for this, but let me tell you one thing. The tax bill that was passed at the end of last year, that's going to add over $1 trillion to the debt. This year that we just finished, the fiscal year we just ended, $779 billion in the red. Next year is projected to be $900 billion. That is absolutely foolishness. That is irresponsible. We need to make a correction. We need to make some changes. The other thing about the tax bill, I mean, I understand that there's some good things for corporations. We need to make sure that they stay here. We need to make sure that they expand here. But the wealthiest 1% of the people in the United States get a $54,000 tax break this year. That's not right. Not when you have the kind of debt that we're dealing with.
That's nothing to $1 million corporation.
Well, you know, liberals hate it when people get their money back and it's in their pocket and they can spend it the way they choose. Okay, they look at things a lot different. Obama's plan was to give back hundreds of billions of dollars in the form of stimulus, or through how they choose to lay it out, and through their special interests and such. Okay, Republicans reduce taxes so all people get a return and spend it in the manner that you see fit. And by the way, look at the difference. This is how America has grown. This is how America, for a 50-year period, from 1945 to 1995, exceeded Europe by 40% in our economic growth. Okay, since then, we've been neck and neck because we have not been following the American way policies of trusting in the individual and providing freedoms back and not having an overbearing government. Under Barack Obama, you know, I love hearing this. I love hearing this. All of a sudden now everybody's worried about the debt. The liberal Democrats. Okay? Obama spent $10 trillion that we did not have, and what do we have to show for it? Do we have our roads modernized? Is everything just, we've fast speed trains and such? We have nothing. Our airport's beautiful. It's not happening. So there are absolutely ways to cut. I did it when I worked as Revenue Secretary. I helped. But I will just tell you this. The one place we're not going to cut is the one program that people paid into, and that's Social Security. That's the last place. The last place, and we will never, on my watch anyway, cut Social Security. There's enough waste, abuse, and fraud in our government to put us in line with our revenues. That's what we got to work on. We got to be responsible stewards of the people's money.
Okay, we're running rather late, and hopefully we'll get through a few more questions before we move. I asked libertarians this question. I think it's important we know from a candidate who most likely will win the seat, and that is Second Amendment. Now, we can talk the bump stocks, as I said, semi-automatic rifles, military-style ammunition clips, gun show restrictions, license to carry, reciprocity law. We're all over the map on tries to come with ways to create restrictions without trying to step on the Second Amendment. However, most of the time, that's exactly what happens. So, I'd like a 30-second answer from each of you. Where do you stand on the Second Amendment and gun rights?
Let's enforce the laws we have on the books before we even think about putting any other laws in place. That makes no sense at all. We need to keep the guns out of the hands of three specific types of people. People with mental illness, people that have a criminal record, and people that have PFAs against it. You accomplish that, you solve the problem. So I'm supporting that we look at our current laws that are on the books and see what we can do to make sure that those laws are carried out. Maybe we need a new IT system. We should be able to do a quick background check that's accurate. And so we need to make sure that that is in place using the laws that we have today. That's why the NRA gave me an A rating last week.
Well, that's news, because
It is, because on their website it said it was 0.0, and my opponent did say he would not accept any financial support from the NRA. Not that I'm sure that they were offering, but they didn't. In all fairness, they didn't offer it to me either. But yes, I would have accepted, because I am a proud member of the NRA. I believe the NRA teaches gun safety. I am a lifetime member of the NRA. My father tells me I was an NRA member when I was about 4 years old, but I can't find that card. I wish I could. My father was a police officer. We were brought up to understand gun safety, and it stayed with us forever. And that's something that responsible firearms use is appropriate. I was endorsed by Bill Bockenberg. He's on the Board of Trustees of the NRA. And you know, there is something in effect right now called the NICS program and the PICS program. In Pennsylvania, our PICS program works pretty good for assuring that, well, not pretty good, it works extremely well. And the entire nation should be behind such. I am strongly supportive of our Second Amendment. Your right to bear arms should not be infringed.
Well, folks, we've gone over our intended 30 minutes, but hopefully we had a spirited discussion and you've learned a few things. But in order to try to stay close to our closing time, I'm going to wrap it up now and allow each one a 2-minute summary of whatever they wish to speak on their campaign. Following that, I want to make an announcement that as Dan David could not make it, his point man, Andrew Ferreira, is here somewhere back there. So he is represented by his point man, so I would ask you to make sure you pay him a visit, as well as all the tables. But with that, I'd like to each candidate to give me a 2-minute wrap here.
Thank you. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. You know, as I stated in the beginning, I'm running for Congress because Congress desperately needs some people from the real world. Some people that knows what it's like to work for a living. Some people that knows the value of a dollar. And that's the world that I grew up in. That's the person that I am. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, we're at a point in time where we need to decide that we've got some problems we have to solve. And if you're going to just send somebody down there who's going to go to their corner and throw hand grenades, we're going to be back here in 2 years, and we're going to be exactly where we're at. We need people that know what it's like to identify problems. You need people that know what it's like to find the middle ground. And you have people that need to know what it's like to go down there and move this agenda forward. That's what I intend to do. That's what I've done my whole life. When you're a dairy farmer, you grow up in a rural area. You have common sense. You have rural values. Community matters. Your family matters. Your community is just so important to you. You take ownership of your community. You help people when they need help. These are all things that are very important to me, personally, and these are all things that are very important to this district. I've told people time and time again, when I go to Congress, I am not going to work for Nancy Pelosi. I am not going to work for President Trump. I am going to work for the people of the 9th Congressional District. And when in this district, when President Trump has things that he is proposing, I will gladly support them if they benefit the people of this district. If he makes decisions that do not benefit this district, I will be the first person to stand up and tell him that. I think we need to check down there. I think we need checks and balances. That's what Congress is about. That's what Congress is supposed to do. And that's what I plan to do if elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. You know what? Congress is about helping make our country better. And the policies that are in place should always be focused on not ruling, but serving. Not forcing compliance, but figuring out what we can do best to help the Pennsylvania and American family thrive. Folks, there were great contrasts in this election, right? And I thank many of you very much for the opportunity to run at this point. because we have to keep the 9th Congressional District in the hands of a conservative Republican. Some of the issues came out here tonight. We are on polar opposites on every single issue. We want to make the tax cuts permanent. They want to repeal them. We want to repeal and replace Obamacare. They think most of it is terrific. We want to build the wall. We want to defund sanctuary cities. We want to say no to amnesty. They're on the opposite side of all of that. Okay? We want to drain the swamp.
Amen.
Okay? And many of us know what that means. And we will not have the cooperation at all if, heaven forbid, the Democrats win the House. Nancy Pelosi will be the Speaker of the House. Now, I've said in my ads, and somehow I was called a liar for it, that a vote for my opponent, a vote for a Democrat in this congressional election is a vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. There's simply no question about it. If the Democrats win the House, and Nancy Pelosi has said it herself, say what you need to say now. Just win, baby. But if you get elected, I will be running for Speaker, and I expect your support. Okay, so that's what's at stake here. It's not fiction. It's the truth. So we all have to understand what's at stake here, and do we want the next 2 years to be one of prosperity and moving forward and freedoms and lower taxes and America keep staying great? Or do we want 2 years of complete obstruction, reckless resistance, Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, and an attempt to unjustifiably impeach our duly elected President of the United States?
That won't happen.
Which way do we want to go? That's what this election is about. So I humbly ask you for your support and your vote.
Well, when I'm saying is you gentlemen stay up here for a few minutes. I appreciate Mr. Wolf and Mr. Rooser for spending the time with us and letting us know what their position is on many of the issues. I had more, but time is essence. What I'm asking now is the Libertarians to come forward, because we're going to have a little bit of town hall that anybody that has a question that you didn't think was covered and you'd like to ask it, we only have one mic, so we'd like you to come right up here in the corner and you'll get the opportunity.
Have your attention, please. We have a question from the audience. Where would a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, I'm sorry, let me start over. This is by one of the audience. Where would a Republican or independent crossover vote for Casey? Senator Casey. I'll repeat that. Why would a Republican or independent crossover vote for Senator Casey?
Sorry, nobody can hear back here. Come down. Thank you. Go ahead.
Folks, we have a few minutes to go here, and then we have the 50-50 raffle. You must be present, so please stay.
Any of you four gentlemen hear that question enough to supply an answer?
I don't know why anyone from any party or any independent would vote for Bob Casey. Bob Casey has proven that he's not worthy of being reelected. He's hugging his father's coattails for years. Many people don't even realize that he's not his father. There was a poll done a few years ago where people actually thought he was his father. His father's been dead for years. Bob Casey has voted with big government, more taxes, more regulations. He's been a rubber stamp for the Obama administration. And even when he's agreed with President Trump, he's disagreed with President Trump just because he wants to stick with his party. I say he's not worthy of the vote.
What I would say, somebody who's going to vote for Casey or Mr. Bartlett, the same thing. If you keep voting the way you've been voting, you're going to keep on getting just what you've been getting. That's why I'm running for governor, because I personally have had enough.
I'm not here to endorse anybody that's currently in Congress, because Congress, whether it be the House or the Senate, is dysfunctional and broken. We need to start over. We need some fresh faces. We need to get the train back on the tracks down there.
If you all begin, please, try to get a 30-second response to them. I think we got some people waiting in line, and I don't want to see the crowd leaving before we're done. Next question.
My question is for Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf, you are a dairy farmer. During your tenure as Secretary of Agriculture, you did force dairy farmers to remove the hormone-free label from their cartons, something that was supported by Monsanto, and was later overturned, actually had to be overturned by Governor Rendell. So my question for you is, since that seems like somebody more that would be a bureaucrat would do rather than a farmer, why do you oppose people knowing full well out in the open what their food does or does not contain? Why did you do that?
The discussion about the food labeling came to light from a group of dairy farmers from Lebanon County. They were told by Swiss Dairy that they had to discontinue using VST as a product that they used on their herd. They came to me and asked me that if I could help them. And I told them that I would. I told them that those labels were misleading, and the Department of Ag has the ability and authority to regulate labels if they're false or misleading. The point was there would be a splash ad on the front of the bottle that would say hormone-free. All milk has hormones in it. So it was false advertising. So we finally worked through this after 3 months of battle and debate, and we came up with a policy that aligned with FDA's, where the splash ad is on the front that they could put on there, our farmers pledge not to use RBST because you can't test milk for it, and there had to be a disclaimer on the same panel. So it was complicated, it was long, it was gruesome, it was tough, but at the end of the day, the farmers were satisfied with that, I was satisfied with it, and the governor was satisfied with it.
I have a different idea on immigration reform. Bring back the draft. Train the illegals how to take back their country, send them back with the knowledge and know-how to make their country great. I'd like your opinions.
So the question is, do we think we ought to get involved in training foreign people to go back to their own country? No. Sure. Anybody want to take a crack at that?
I'm opposed to a draft of any kind. I'm opposed to government using force to do anything with anyone. I'm opposed to us spending time and resources on such an effort to send people to another country and give them training. I think that would be a complete waste of time and a waste of money. And with the looming deficit that we have and the budget crisis that we have, we can't afford to do anything like that.
Well, I would say for citizens, spending time in our military is a great thing. I think young people should be strongly encouraged, and I'm not so sure a short-term draft would be all that bad of a thing for our young people to secure our country. I spent about 2 years in Navy ROTC. By no means did I serve my nation like so many of you veterans have, but I did have an understanding of how important it is, and so therefore I would favor anything to encourage our young people to take part in our military.
Your opinion different than that, or can we go to the next one?
My question is for Mr. Wolf. What do you and your Democratic colleague Nancy Pelosi differ on? What do you and your Democratic colleague Nancy Pelosi differ on? Differ.
I'm conservative and she's liberal. That's where we differ. I look at things from the standpoint of how you operate a farm in northeastern Pennsylvania with all the regulations that we have today. I look at it from the standpoint of somebody that's on the receiving end of all the regulations that come down the pipe. So what I intend to do is to be on the other side of that issue and be the voice in saying, look, you can't do this. This is putting businesses out of business, small businesses out of business. This is putting dairy farmers out of business. You can't do that. When I was Secretary of Agriculture, oftentimes I would be the only person at the table that could say, let me tell you how that would affect my farm. Only person. You could hear a pin drop because no one else in the room could answer that question. That's what I intend to do. I intend to take the message of the working families, the farmers, and the small businesses down there so that they are not overregulated. And that would be a problem for Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you. We libertarians, we don't believe in the right-left spectrum. It's not a line. It's actually a diamond where people on the left, it's graded in personal freedom and economic freedom. People on the left believe a high degree of personal freedom and a low degree of economic freedom. People on the right believe in a high degree of economic freedom and a lower degree of personal freedom. We libertarians believe in freedom all the time. So Nancy Pelosi would agree with us when it comes to personal issues, and conservatives would agree with us when it comes to economic issues. Libertarians are the best of both worlds.
If there were moderates on the left, that would be something else. Nancy Pelosi is very, very extreme, and unfortunately at this time in our history, the Congressional Democrats followed her. Last year, I think some of us remember Connor Lamb, that my opponent uses as a model. Connor Lamb ran against Nancy Pelosi in his special election. He's running against her now. Yet when he went to Washington, he voted with her 94% of the time. Not one Democrat voted for the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Not one Democrat in the House voted for the Farm Bill. They stay in line, they listen to Nancy Pelosi, and that's a real problem, and that's why we have to keep the House.
First of all, I want to thank all the candidates tonight for coming. I know you guys are all busy. Mr. Wolf, you sparked my interest earlier when you made a comment, due process. You believe in due process. My question is, do you and will you, or did you support Justice Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court?
I think the Kavanaugh debacle is a great example of just how screwed up D.C. is today. If they were going to bring information about Justice Kavanaugh to light, it should have been at the front end of that discussion, not in the bottom of the ninth inning. That is just, if politics, that's politics at its worst. You can't do that. We need to have due process, we need to have a good public debate, and then make a decision. Not the way that it was handled down there. I think it's a real black eye on the United States.
Black eye, so much.
Before I ask my question, I want to follow up with that question to Mr. Wolf, because the question was, would you have supported Brett Kavanaugh? Do you think that he would make a good Supreme Court justice? Because they're thinking of impeaching him when Democrats become. That was your question.
At this point in time, I would have no part of impeaching Kavanaugh. I would have no part of that. I have not seen all the information that was privy to the FBI, but at this point, with the information that I have seen, I would not be supportive of impeaching him.
Senior citizens have paid off their homes and they're held hostage by the property taxes. I know this is a state issue, but we all used to be part of the state. And property law, they held hostage at some point. The federal government even look at property as a hostage. So would you support eliminating property taxes to go to sales tax and income taxes as a way to fund government services from schools to municipalities and everything else? Starting with Mr. Wolf.
It would depend on what you look at to replace it with. Look, I'm a dairy farmer. It's one of the biggest checks I write every year, is paying my real estate property taxes, especially my school taxes on my farm. So I know the hardship and I know how challenging that is, and then it's also just as big of a challenge for senior citizens or people on fixed income. It's a big problem. There needs to be a transfer where that tax comes from somewhere else. I know there's some good ideas out there, and I would be interested and pleased to look at that as an option and an opportunity.
The worst of all taxes is the property tax. Drives seniors out of the home, raises the bar for new home buyers. This is bad. As governor, I will work to eliminate it. Now, things like HB 76, to me, it's a shell game. It's hiding the fact that schools are incredibly expensive. In my hometown of Abington, just outside of Philadelphia, I looked at all the private schools, not the fancy fenced schools or stuff, just the regular schools. The average cost was $9,000 a year. I then took the Abington School District budget, divided by the number of children, it's $20,000 a year per kid. If we privatize the schools, we could cut property taxes in half overnight. Then we could talk about substitutions.
I beg to differ. I don't think this is a state issue at all. I think it's a human rights issue. And I think it's an issue that our founders missed. I propose a constitutional amendment that gives you a right to own your own property, give you a right to not have to rent your property from the federal government. If I'm elected, I will push for a federal constitutional amendment so that you own your own home. We get rid of property taxes altogether, and we make our states get in check. We make our states capitalize on a budget. And then the way we do this from a federal standpoint with education is we make education local again. We bring it back to the states, we bring it back to the communities, and ultimately back to the parents so that you have the purchasing power of where your children go, what your children can do. If you want to send them to a private school, if you want to homeschool, if you want to go to public school. I think that's how we fix the education problem and how we fix our property tax issue.
I am completely for and will work with you to help eliminate school property taxes. I think it is a game changer for Pennsylvania. I think if we elect Scott Wagner governor, we will see it in shorter order than not. There are federal implications, I believe. I do not believe that it follows due process. I do believe how the collection of school property taxes is in violation of the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution. And I will be just a strong voice and advocate doing everything I can to help eliminate school property taxes for Pennsylvania.
I just encourage the candidates to try to keep them brief. I don't want to see anybody in the line not get an opportunity. Thanks.
Good evening, and thank you all for attending tonight. Appreciate your efforts. My question revolves around building, especially the caravan that's currently on its way from El Salvador and Honduras. Just want to get your opinions on it and to emphasize what the president recently said about bringing up the military to secure our border in case they would make it this far. Just looking for your opinions. Thank you.
Look, I know this is a really hot topic, and I know it's a real challenging one, and it really gets to the heart of the issue when you start talking about children that are involved in removing children from families and what a problem that has caused in this country. Look, the people that are coming from Central America are coming here to ask for asylum. They need to be detained, and they need to be vetted, and that process needs to take place. And then the people that are responsible for that, they need to make the decision. I don't think that's a decision I can make standing here on the stage tonight. I think it's a humanitarian issue, and I think they have the right people down there looking at it and making that decision.
I think there are clear ways here that we can determine who is coming for asylum and who's coming for what many of your fears might be, and that's for handouts, free stuff. Let's just stop giving people free stuff. Cut off the incentive for anybody who wants to come here for free stuff by not giving them free stuff. And that goes for not just people that are migrating here, that goes for everybody. Stop giving out free stuff. We're selling away the farm.
Yeah, this caravan coming in is very much of an attack on the sovereignty of our country. We do have borders and we do have laws. Related to the free stuff, certainly that does stimulate those to come to our country illegally. From an employer standpoint, our company has been following the E-Verify system since 1998, and we haven't had any problem whatsoever with anybody providing falsified identification since then. I think that we need border security. I think ICE needs to be reinforced as opposed to debilitated as the Democrats want, and we need to deal with this, or what's next? A caravan of 30,000 people? 80,000 people? All right, we're running deficits. Our taxpayers are being overtaxed. There are people who are on Social Security that are trying to make ends meet, and we're trying to do everything for the world. And we are the most humanitarian country in the world. We have millions of people a year who come here legally. Those people must come here legally, not illegally.
Hi, my question is mainly for Mr. Wolf, since you're a dairy farmer. My question is you and your position on dairy farmers. Why is the federal government allowed to give $1.5 million grant that doesn't have to be paid back to a major corporation or large dairy farmer, and then they do not have to pay that back, then they come in with the milk truck, they download the milk from their farm, and they drive it over to a pit and dump the milk into the pit? Yes, and that's a question to you. What is your position on that? And when they lay off people and equipment's made overseas, and that money doesn't have to be paid back, while small farmers are getting put out of business. And you know that it hurts, so don't say it doesn't.
I'm not sure of the exact circumstances that you're talking about, but I would say that any government program that is the end result is not acceptable. So without knowing the details, I can't tell you exactly how that happened, where it happened, but if someone has a $1.5 million loan or a $1.5 million grant that they're receiving, and then they're putting their milk in that pit, I'm not sure I understand how that happened, but that certainly would be not a good idea.
I don't know the details either, but I can tell you what I'm going to do. The Constitution for Pennsylvania gives the governor the power of the line item veto. If I see special interests like that, gone. Special interest money, gone. Pork barrel, gone, 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 gone. I'm going to cut the size of the budget in Pennsylvania by getting rid of just the sort of thing that gentleman was talking about.
All right, I have a foreign policy question for all of you. All right, we've been in Afghanistan for almost 18 years now. I think it's time we get out. I think our past presidents and past administrations have failed us. What's your plan for success and victory and getting out of Afghanistan, getting out of all these wars?
Exit policy, I guess.
Okay, well, I certainly don't want to have our young men and women in harm's way defending areas that we've been defending for 18 years. So I am absolutely interested in a plan to wind down, maintain the Afghans taking care of themselves and keeping our boys and young ladies out of harm's way. Now, on the same note, we cannot, we're a superpower. We cannot allow the Taliban and other terrorist groups to start back up, because then we'll have a bigger problem. But we need to do things in a far smarter way than have been done. And Wolfie, I agree with you entirely, 18 years is too long.
The most simple solution here is to, for one, we need to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. There's no reason for us to be there protecting poppy fields, which is what we're doing. The threat is gone, Osama bin Laden is dead. What we need to do is bring war powers back to Congress. I'm sick and tired of seeing presidents, no matter which party they're in, waging war across the globe. I'm sick and tired of Congress not being involved. If I have to, when I go to the Senate, I will use the filibuster. I'll wear a diaper and I'll use the filibuster to make sure that we're not sending our boys and girls off to war to fight needless, senseless wars for bankers and politicians. We're fighting Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, but there are allies in Syria. It just doesn't make sense. What's this mess all about? It's time that we bring war powers back to Congress the way the founders intended.
Yes. As governor, I'm in charge of the Pennsylvania National Guard. And the Pennsylvania National Guard, when I'm governor, is going to stay in Pennsylvania. We're going to help the people here. Maybe we're going to have help with these hurricanes, send some help down to Florida, down to Carolinas, but no overseas engagements with the Pennsylvania National Guard when I'm governor, period.
We just need an end game plan here. This has been going on and on and on. So we need to decide how long we want to be there and what our strategy is to get out of there, and then put that plan in place.
Okay, one more question and we can wrap it up.
Retirees, but yet there are no retirees on the school board. And one of the reasons that the taxes are so high is because of building palaces now. I just recently went, okay, so what I want to know is, what kind of creative ideas do you have for eliminating property taxes, at least for seniors? Because I pay 30% of my income right now for taxes.
Yep. There's a state question.
I already answered half of that question. We privatize the schools and allow the school districts to, but they can do it anyway, place students locally. We can cut property taxes in half. Then it becomes a lot more manageable. Now, I ran for governor in 2002, and I proposed something back then which would have worked. If we had decriminalized marijuana then, kept the street price the same, and used the difference to pay for the schools, we could have retired the property tax at that time. We could still do that today. Marijuana is not a dangerous drug. I'll get into more details for over 30 seconds.
We normally secure at 8:30 or 5 and 9. Gentlemen and audience, I appreciate you hanging in there, and I especially appreciate the candidates and their vigor to attack these questions and supply us answers. And I appreciate all four of you gentlemen for coming this evening, and I would say we made this night a success. Okay, our part of this evening is complete.
Rod, you can go home and sleep tonight. Folks, we're going to do the 50-50 raffle. Linda, here's the mic.
$238 to give away. Victoria, a future voter, is going to pick the winning number. Go ahead. Okay, what is the number? Okay. 6, 6, 9, 7, 4, 6. No! No!
See you later, Dave. You too. See you.
Folks, please hang tight. Linda will give us the closing prayer. Thank you.
Okay, calm down a little bit now. We're going to close. Heavenly Father, as we come to the end of our meeting, we thank you for what has been accomplished here. May the matters discussed serve as a catalyst to move us forward and cause us to advance and see growth in all areas of our lives. Help us to digest and evaluate what was said here today, and help us make the right choices at the ballot box. May we leave here recognizing that you are the God of all wisdom, and you are willing to lead us forward. This we pray in the name of Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, folks. Drive carefully going home. Also, I want to let you know next month, Joshua Prince. Anything you want to know about the Second Amendment, current laws, please make sure you come. We'll see you next week. Safe drive home. Thank you. Thank you all.